My wife and I fought over $250, $0 from her late uncle's estate, only to discover she secretly lawyered up and is now claiming I coerced her into signing away half the property. Can I trust anyone anymore? I never thought I'd be sitting here, writing this down, but here we are. The strangest thing happened last week, something I never expected to find out about my wife, and it turned everything I thought I knew about our marriage upside down. It all started with a simple, innocent search for some old financial documents, and that search led me straight into a nightmare I couldn't have imagined. We'd been together for almost 10 years. I thought we had a good life, decent jobs, a nice house, and a kid I loved more than anything. But lately, I'd noticed acting weird. She was more bitchy than usual, snapping at me over small things, and she was always on her phone, hiding her screen when I got near. At first, I figured she was just stressed about her work. She's a lawyer, so she's always busy, always in some high-stakes case that she swore was nothing, just work stuff. But the little signs kept piling up. She'd leave her phone in the bathroom when she showered, or she'd get a strange look when I asked her about her day, like she was hiding something. Then, a couple of days ago, I found a receipt tucked in her purse, one for a hotel room downtown, paid for with her credit card. It was late at night, and I was just messing around on her phone, trying to find some old emails when I saw the receipt. I thought maybe she'd gone out with her friends or something, but the hotel was suspiciously close to her office. She told me she was working late that night, but that receipt told a different story. I looked at the dates on her emails, and I realized she'd been lying about her whereabouts for weeks. That's when I started digging deeper. I pulled up her bank statements, and that's when I saw the biggest shock of all. Had been withdrawing money from her late uncle's estate, 250, a huge chunk of it, without telling me. She'd been secretly lawyered up, and she wasn't just spending it on herself. She was hiding it from me, and I had no idea. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. How could she do this? We had plans, dreams. We were supposed to build a life together, not have her secretly siphon off this money and lie to my face. That's when I confronted her. I sat her down in the living room, my heart pounding, and I laid everything out. Her secret bank withdrawals, the hotel receipt, the fact that I knew she'd lawyered up. Her face twisted into this bitchy sneer, like she thought she was clever. She told me I was overreacting, that I was just paranoid, that I was reading too much into it. She said she needed the money for something important, but refused to tell me what. When I pressed her, she threw a fit, accused me of spying on her, and claimed I was trying to control her. She said I was just jealous because she's successful and she's got her own life, and I should mind my own business. That moment was like a punch to the gut. I was furious, but also devastated. I trusted her completely, and now I felt like I didn't know her at all. The woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, was hiding a secret life, cheating with someone else and lying about money that was meant for us. I couldn't sleep after that. I kept replaying everything, trying to find some reason, some explanation that would make sense. But deep down, I knew the truth. Had been cheating on me, and she'd been using her uncle's estate to fund her affair. That realization was like a cold blade in my chest. Since then, I've been stuck in this weird limbo, angry, betrayed, and trying to figure out what to do next. I don't even know if I should trust her anymore, or if I should just cut my losses and walk away. Every time I think about the money, her lies, the fact that she's been sneaking around behind my back, I get more and more convinced that I need to do something about it. But what? How do you fight someone who's been so good at hiding her true self? How do you even begin to process the idea that your wife has been cheating on you, secretly manipulating your finances and lying through her teeth? I know I can't stay in this limbo forever. I need to decide whether to confront her again or to just leave everything behind. I've got a lot to think about, and honestly, I don't think I have all the answers yet. But one thing's clear: I don't trust her anymore, not even a little. And I don't know if I ever will. After I discovered everything, I couldn't sleep for nights. My mind was racing, trying to piece together how I missed all the signs, how she managed to keep this secret from me for so long. I kept thinking about the money, 250 from her late uncle's estate, and how she'd been secretly lawyered up all behind my back. The betrayal cut deep, but even worse was the feeling of being completely. I had always thought we were solid, that we trusted each other. Turns out I was dead wrong. The thing has always been a bitch when she doesn't get her way. She's manipulative, and when I confronted her about the hotel receipt and the bank statements, she didn't just deny everything. She turned it around. She started calling me paranoid, saying I was crazy for thinking she'd do something like that. She claimed I was just jealous because she was successful, that I was insecure, and that I was trying to control her. She even had the nerve to say I was trying to sabotage her because I didn't want her to have her own life. That was the moment I realized how deep her lies ran, how good she was at spinning stories. She's always been like that, lying through her teeth, twisting things to make herself look innocent. That's her default mode. I remember once when we were arguing about money early on, she said she'd never cheat or lie to me. I believed her then. Now I see she's capable of anything. The worst part is, she's got a lawyer now, probably to shield herself from any fallout. I found out she lawyered up after I started digging into her financials. That's when I realized she was planning something, probably to hide even more or to prepare for a fight. It's like she's always one step ahead, covering her tracks, trying to make me look like the bad guy. I started feeling like I was losing my mind. Everything I thought I knew about was a lie. Her bitchy attitude, her sneaky phone habits, her sudden mood swings, all of it now made sense. She was hiding her affair, hiding her money, hiding her true self. I found evidence of late-night calls, secret texts, even pictures on her phone, things I shouldn't have seen. One night I caught her in the act, texting someone named Jake, calling him babe, saying she missed him. That was the final nail in the coffin. I felt like I'd been punched again, this time by the woman I loved. I didn't confront her right away. I needed time to think, to process what I'd found. But the rage was building inside me. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, cheat on me, and then lie about money that was supposed to be for us? It wasn't just about the money, it was about trust, respect, and the life we built. I felt so stupid for not noticing sooner. I kept asking myself, how long has she been cheating? How much of her success was just a lie? Did she ever really love me, or was I just a pawn in her game? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to find out just how deep her deception went. The next step was obvious. I needed to hire a private investigator. I couldn't trust her lawyer or her word anymore. I started looking into reputable investigators, someone who could follow her, gather evidence, and help me understand what she was really up to. It was a huge step, admitting I needed help, but I knew I couldn't handle this alone anymore. While I was doing that, kept acting like everything was normal. She'd come home, pretend to be innocent, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She'd throw tantrums if I questioned her about her whereabouts, accuse me of being controlling, and say I was just jealous. That made me angrier. She was good at gaslighting, making me feel like I was the crazy one for suspecting her, but I knew better. I had the receipts, the texts, the bank statements. I was done being played for a fool. I also started thinking about the worst-case scenario. What if she was planning to leave with the money? What if she was planning to run off with Jake or someone else she was cheating with? That thought kept me awake some nights. I realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let her take everything from me, my marriage, my trust, my stability. I had to protect what was mine, even if that meant tearing everything apart to do it. So, here I am, stuck between disbelief and anger, trying to figure out my next move. I know I can't just sweep this under the rug. I have to confront her again, but I don't know if I can do it without losing my mind. I've never felt this betrayed, this hurt in all my life. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was secretly cheating on me, secretly hiding money and lying to my face. And the worst part, she's still pretending everything's fine. That's what makes it so hard. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, they're all still there, like a shield she's hiding behind. I just don't know how much more I can take before I break. After spending a couple of days trying to keep my cool and figure out what to do next, I finally decided I couldn't just sit around, waiting for her to slip up again or for more evidence to fall into my lap. I needed to get serious. I hired a private investigator, not cheap, but I figured if she was cheating, I had to catch her in the act. The pie started tailing her, following her around town, checking her phone records and digging into her financials even further. It was a relief to have someone else doing the dirty work, honestly. I couldn't face her again without solid proof, and I didn't trust my own judgment anymore. While all of that was happening's attitude got even more bitchy and defensive. She'd explode if I questioned her about where she'd been or who she'd been texting. She'd throw tantrums, scream that I was controlling and paranoid, and accuse me of spying on her because I was jealous or possessive. Honestly, it was like she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. But the truth was, I'd seen enough to know she was hiding something, something big. She was lying about her whereabouts, lying about her phone, and she was still withdrawing money from her uncle's estate. The more she hid, the more I knew she was guilty. One night I decided I'd had enough. I set up a little camera in the living room, nothing fancy, just a small device I bought online. I wanted to catch her in her lies if she was planning to do something sneaky. Sure enough, a few days later, I saw her sneaking out late at night, her phone in her hand, looking around nervously. I watched her get into a car with Jake. That's when I knew for sure she was cheating and she'd been lying about everything. My stomach sank, and for the first time in days, I felt this deep, burning rage. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I confronted her the next morning, and the fight was vicious. I told her I knew about her affair, about the hotel, the secret money, everything. She looked at me with pure contempt, like I was nothing more than an obstacle in her life. She spat at me, saying I was just jealous and insecure, that she never loved me, that I was just a boring, controlling husband who couldn't handle her success. Her words cut deep, but I didn't back down. I told her I'd had enough. She was done lying to me and I wanted her to leave. I said I was done being played and I was going to protect my rights. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. She started crying, but it was fake, I could tell. She pretended to be the victim, saying I was ruining everything, that I was trying to control her, that I'd never really loved her. But I saw through all that. I knew her game. I told her, "You've been cheating, lying, and stealing from me. How can I trust you now?" She kept crying, calling me a bastard, saying I was ruining her life, but I didn't care. I'd already made up my mind. I was going to take her to court over the money, and I was going to make sure she paid for what she'd done. That night I packed a bag and told her she could stay or go, but I wasn't going to keep her in my house anymore. I was done with her bullshit. I had evidence now, her texts, bank statements, the secret lawyer, the hotel receipt, everything. I was finally ready to fight back. I didn't want to be with someone who lied and cheated and manipulated me. I wanted a clean break, a fresh start, even if it meant tearing apart everything I'd built with her. It was a strange feeling, anger, relief, sadness, all rolled into one. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, then pulled back up by the sheer force of my own resolve. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about respect, trust, and my sanity. I knew she was going to fight me, try to spin her lies, try to make me look like the bad guy. But I had enough now, enough to show the truth. And that truth had been cheating, lying, and stealing from us all along. There's a part of me that feels broken, but another part that's finally free from her manipulations. I just hope I'm doing the right thing now, because honestly, I don't even know anymore. The day I told her to leave was one of the hardest days I've ever faced. Not because I wanted her to stay, hell, I'd already made up my mind she was gone, but because of everything that had led up to it. Seeing her standing there, tears streaming down her face, pretending to be the victim, while I knew the truth about her lies and infidelity, was a gut punch I wasn't prepared for. She kept crying, saying I was ruining her life, that she loved me, that she never meant for any of this to happen. But I couldn't listen anymore. I saw through her bullshit now. I knew she'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer. She kept insisting she was innocent, that the hotel and the affair were just mistakes, that she was sorry, that she'd change, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I had enough proof, enough evidence, and I wasn't going to be played anymore. I told her she'd crossed a line, she'd betrayed everything we built, and I was done. I told her she could take her stuff and get out, that I was filing for divorce, and I was going to fight her over the money she'd secretly taken. The moment she left, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. On one hand, I was finally free from her manipulations, her bitchy attitude, her lies. On the other, I was devastated, because I'd loved her once and I never thought she'd turn out to be this person. I kept replaying everything in my head, all the signs I'd missed, the times she snapped at me, the late-night texts, the secret lawyer she'd hired, the money she'd taken. It all felt like a betrayal of everything I believed in. The next few days were a blur. I contacted a lawyer, started the divorce process, and prepared to fight her over the estate. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice. I knew she'd try to spin it, say I was a controlling husband or that I forced her into signing papers. But I had the evidence: bank statements, texts, the hotel receipt, her lawyer's contact info. I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine, even if it meant tearing everything apart. Meanwhile, kept calling and texting, trying to manipulate me into taking her back. She'd cry, say she was sorry, tell me she loved me and that she'd change. But I didn't fall for it. I saw through her tears, through her fake apologies. She was just trying to keep me from going through with everything. I told her to stop bothering me, that I wasn't interested in her guilt trips anymore. I was done being played. I realized that her tears were just her way of trying to control the situation, but I wasn't going to let her. One thing I couldn't shake was how much I hated the fact that she was still lying, still trying to manipulate me even after she'd left. I found out she'd been secretly meeting with her lawyer, trying to figure out how to hide more money, how to spin her story. It made me realize just how far she was willing to go to cover her tracks, but I had enough now. I knew what she was capable of, and I was ready to hold her accountable. I also started thinking about the future. I knew I needed therapy to deal with the betrayal and the heartbreak. I needed to get my head straight, figure out how to move on from this mess. It hurt to think about losing her, but I knew I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. I had to rebuild my life, focus on my kid, and make sure I was protected from her schemes. I was angry at myself for trusting her so blindly, but I also knew I had to forgive myself and learn from this. The biggest lesson I've learned so far is that trust is fragile. I used to believe in honesty, loyalty, and transparency. Now, I see that people can hide who they really are behind a pretty face or a convincing lie. Was good at pretending, but her actions proved she was capable of anything. I can't let myself be naive again. I've got to be smarter, more cautious, and more aware of the signs of betrayal. And most of all, I've got to protect what's mine, my peace, my sanity, and my future. Because if I don't, I might never recover from this betrayal. The months that followed were some of the most turbulent in my life. After she moved out, I threw myself into the divorce process, trying to get everything sorted out as quickly and cleanly as possible. I hired a lawyer who specialized in estate disputes and marital betrayals, and from the start, I made it clear I wasn't backing down. The attempts to manipulate and gaslight me only strengthened my resolve. She kept calling, begging, crying, trying to spin her lies even from afar. But I'd had enough. I saw her true colors, and I wasn't going to let her destroy what little trust I had left. Meanwhile, the evidence my pie had gathered was damning. I had photos of her sneaking into Jake's apartment late at night, texts where she called him babe and said she missed him, and bank statements showing her withdrawals from her late uncle's estate, money she'd secretly taken and used to fund her affair. It was all laid out in black and white, undeniable. I handed everything over to my lawyer and we prepared to take her to court. The goal was clear. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done, not just financially but emotionally. She'd betrayed our vows, lied to my face, and now she had to face the consequences. Throughout this process, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of anger and sadness. I kept thinking about the good times, about how I'd trusted her blindly, and how she'd betrayed that trust so thoroughly. I was furious at her for using her own family's money to fund her secret life, and at myself for not seeing her true nature sooner. Every time I saw her crying or begging on the phone, I felt a surge of frustration. She'd always been good at pretending to be the victim, twisting everything to make herself look innocent, classic manipulative behavior. But I'd finally caught her, and I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of it this time. One day, I sat down and really thought about what I wanted long term. I realized that holding onto anger was only hurting me. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could control how I moved forward. I decided to focus on rebuilding my life, for my kids' sake and for myself. I started going to therapy, talking about everything: trust, betrayal, anger, grief. It helped. I also cut off all contact with, except what was necessary for the divorce proceedings. I didn't want her manipulating me anymore or making me doubt myself again. But even with all that, I couldn't help but feel betrayed at a deeper level. How could she do this? How could she lie so convincingly? I kept replaying her words, her tears, her fake apologies. It made me realize just how much people can hide behind a mask. Was my wife my partner, and I genuinely believed she loved me. Turns out she'd been living a double life, one where she was cheating, stealing, and lying all at once. That hurt worse than anything. It made me question everything about trust and what I thought I knew about people. I learned that people are capable of anything when they're desperate or selfish enough. Greed and her need for control drove her to betray her vows, her family, and even her own sense of morality. It's a bitter lesson, but one I'll carry with me. I also learned that I have strength I didn't realize I had. Facing her accusations, her tears, and her manipulations took a toll, but I stayed firm. I stayed true to myself and what I knew was right. That's what kept me going, knowing I was fighting for my dignity, my kids' future, and my own sanity. Now, I'm finally starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. The court date is coming up, and I feel more confident than I did when I first found out about her cheating and stealing. I'm ready to put this chapter behind me and focus on healing. The pain still lingers, but I know I'll come out of this stronger. I've learned that trust isn't something you can take for granted. It has to be earned, maintained, and protected. And when someone betrays that trust so thoroughly, sometimes the only way forward is to cut ties completely and rebuild from scratch. That's what I'm doing now, rebuilding, healing, and learning to trust myself again. The court date finally arrived, and I was more ready than I thought I'd be. All the evidence I had gathered, the bank statements, the texts, the hotel receipts, the Pi's reports, laid everything bare. The lawyer tried to spin her story, claiming she was innocent, that I was trying to control her, that she was the real victim here. But I didn't flinch. I knew the truth, and I was prepared to fight for it. When the judge looked over the evidence, it was clear that it had been dishonest, manipulative, and entirely selfish. The judge ordered her to return the stolen funds and to pay damages for her deceit. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my sense of trust. I realized that sometimes people's true colors only come out when they think they can get away with something. Actions showed her for what she was, a manipulative, dishonest woman who cared only about herself. That truth was hard to swallow, but it was necessary. I had to face it to move on. Since then, I've been focusing on rebuilding. I've cut all contact with her calls, her texts, her manipulative attempts to worm her way back into my life. I've also started seeing a therapist regularly, working through the anger, betrayal, and grief. It's a slow process, but I'm making progress. My kid is doing well, and I'm trying to keep my focus on what's ahead rather than what's behind. I've learned a lot from this experience, things I wish I hadn't had to learn, but things that will make me wiser moving forward. Looking back, I realize how much I trusted blindly. I thought love was enough, that honesty was a given, that my partner would always have my back. Turns out, that's not always the case. I learned that people can hide their true selves behind a pretty face, behind lies, behind manipulations, until they're caught. And when they are, it's a brutal but necessary wake-up call. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to fully repair. But what I do know now is that I have the strength to rebuild my life, better, wiser, and more cautious. This experience has changed me in ways I can't fully describe. It's made me more aware, more vigilant, and more determined to protect myself and my future. I no longer take trust for granted, and I'll never let someone manipulate me like that again. I've come to realize that sometimes you have to lose the person you love to find yourself again. And that's what I've done. I've lost her, but I've gained a new sense of clarity and resilience. In the end, I'm grateful for the lessons. They're bitter but necessary. I've learned that betrayal can come from the person you trust the most, but that doesn't mean you have to let it define you. You pick yourself up, learn from it, and move forward. Because no matter how deep the betrayal, life goes on, and so must you. I'm finally starting to do just that.